Right, guys, Euro 2024 is just 1 month away. And fortunately or unfortunately, I'll be supporting England this summer. Now, I've been following the English national team for over 20 years now since my dad, who's from the UK, first introduced me to the game. And despite strong performances in recent tournaments, including the Euro final against Italy, England hasn't lifted silverware in almost 60 years. But this year, Gareth Southgate and his men are going to look to get things over the line, and I may be a little bit too optimistic, but I think that they have a great chance of doing just that. So in this video, we're going to go over the starting 11 that I think is going to have the best chance of bringing home the trophy this summer. And if you would make any changes to this squad, I want to know what they are, so please leave your comments below. And to kick things off, I want to go over the players that England's going to have to choose from for this tournament. So as you can see on your screen now, here's the provisional training squad of 33 players that England has selected for the training camp. Now this list of 33 players is going to go down to 26 players in just a few weeks, and that means 7 of these players will ultimately be removed from the squad. And just to go over quickly who we have in goal, we have Dean Henderson, Jordan Pickford, Aaron Ramsdale, and James Trafford. I think the selection for that is going to be pretty straightforward as we discuss. Defense actually has quite a few selections, including new inclusions like Jared Branthwaite, Lewis Dunk. We also have Joe Gomez, Mark Guehi, Ezri Konsa, Harry Maguire, Jarrell Quansah, Luke Shaw, John Stones, Kieran Trippier, and Kyle Walker. Then things start to get a little bit lighter. We get into our midfield section, which happens to have probably fewer stars than any other role here. We have Trent Alexander-Arnold and Declan Rice, two really familiar names. And then we get into some smaller players like Conor Gallagher, Curtis Jones, Kobe Mainoo, as well as new call-up Adam Wharton. And finally, we get into my opinion, the absolutely most loaded area on this England squad, and that's going to be the attack. And oh my God, we have Jude Bellingham, Jared Bowen, Eze, Foden, Anthony Gordon, Jack Grealish, Harry Kane, James Maddison, Cole Palmer, Bukayo Saka, Ivan Toney, and Ollie Watkins. And with all the names like that, that means for sure there's going to be some deserving players that get left on the bench. And that is such a shame. But when you have international tournaments and when you have squads with this many players, there's always going to be so much talent that gets left behind or left on the bench. France has to deal with it. Germany, Belgium, Italy, Spain, and England is no exception. So to start off, we're going to select our goalkeeper, and no surprise here, I went with Jordan Pickford. Now, there aren't a whole lot of amazing options in goal. Everton obviously hasn't had a great season, but to be honest, I don't really think that's down to Jordan Pickford. They haven't had a very strong defense this year, and Pickford is a big favorite of Southgate. And when you look at the players he's up against, Aaron Ramsdale can't really get a look in for Arsenal, and Henderson and Trafford haven't had amazing seasons either. That means Pickford is going to be probably the best option in goal. And honestly, I don't mind that, because for England and in most international tournaments, he's been really solid. We know he's capable of saving penalties, and he can also be a leader on the field. He has tons of experience. So moving on to the defense. Now, this was a pretty difficult area because Southgate has been starting a back four in some recent international friendlies. But we know that Southgate has run a back three in the past. He's actually done it 3 to 4 years ago in the previous Euros, and he's also done it in previous World Cups. And this is why I think a 3 in the back is going to be best for Euro 2024. And the easiest way to put it is fullbacks, or lack thereof. Reece James, Ben Chilwell, not even making the flight due to injury. Also, Luke Shaw, struggling with injury this season. Other players like Joe Gomez haven't had a lot of experience in this squad yet. So because we don't have many fullbacks that really could get into this team right now, I think that we should take advantage of moving into a back three, and that will give us one additional attacking role, and then we can play more with wing backs and wider players further up the field. And with the 3 defenders I'm going with, we're going to choose Kyle Walker, Harry Maguire, and John Stones. These are defenders that Gareth Southgate loves. Harry Maguire has captained the squad before, and for England, he's performed really well. John Stones has been extremely solid, and Kyle Walker is arguably the most consistent player for the entire squad. These are three great defenders, a little bit more senior, and there's not a whole lot of youth to come in behind them. There are some younger center backs that might get some playing time. We may see Mark Guehi get in there. We may see Joe Gomez substitute in. There's also Jared Branthwaite. But in terms of starting matches, Southgate's going to go for seniority, and these are three guys that I think we can rely on, even if you've criticized Maguire's time at United. Moving on to the midfield, we're going to go with somewhat of a flat four here, with wingbacks on the exterior and then two holding pivot roles in the center. And those are going to be Trent Alexander-Arnold and Declan Rice in the middle, with Bukayo Saka on the right-hand side and Kieran Trippier on the left. Now, when we get into this midfield four, we're still talking about Southgate's favorites here. He loves Bukayo Saka for good reason. He's been amazing when he plays for England, one of the best players, honestly, from an offensive standpoint, and he loves Kieran Trippier. And I like that this role allows both of them to play almost more in a wing-back position, which Bukayo Saka actually has great experience on, and gives them freedom to move a little bit further up the pitch. And then in the center of the park, you have Trent Alexander-Arnold and Declan Rice, which I think is maybe the most exciting midfield pivot that England has had in well over a decade. Now, Trent usually plays in a back four at Liverpool, although Klopp has experimented moving him up in bits and pieces. However, if you've looked at recent friendlies for England, Trent has been moved up to that defensive midfield role by Gareth Southgate. And I think when you look at the other options that you could pair with Declan Rice, you have Conor Gallagher, who has a little bit of experience, you have Kobe Mainoo, and you also have new addition Adam Wharton. However, if you want someone who's going to be really creative and has more experience in the international team, the pick would have to be Trent. I think he could be a great pairing with Declan Rice, and I also like that this role, he's not going to have as many defensive responsibilities as he would if he were playing that traditional right back position. I think this could be one of the best pivots we've seen in a long time, and there is so much creativity coming out of that group. Because if you think about the midfield pivot we had in previous tournaments, you're looking at Jordan Henderson and Calvin Phillips. Now, while those two players worked actually really well in certain games, they were great ball winners, added a lot of energy, I think it's inarguable that they don't have the creativity of Trent and Declan Rice. These players are going to be able to distribute so well. They're also threats from set pieces. They're threats from long shots. It's going to be really exciting to have them in the middle of the park, and I'm really hopeful that Gareth Southgate is going to see the potential of this combination and that we'll see them playing together. And finally, we have the front three. Now, in some ways, this was a really hard choice, and in other ways, it almost picked itself, because with the front three, you have three of the most talented players in the entire team. We're talking Jude Bellingham, Phil Foden, and Harry Kane. Now, these players, I think almost any England fan will tell you they have to start. They have to be in that 11, because we've seen for Manchester City this season with Phil Foden, not only was he probably their best player, but he's the Premier League player of the season. Jude Bellingham, second top goal scorer in La Liga, and then Harry Kane, obviously prolific as ever in the Bundesliga, even though Bayern didn't get that league title. These are three players that just have to be in the squad, and I think in this formation, they could flourish, because how I have them showed here, I don't want to have a wide front three. So Jude Bellingham and Foden, they're not going to play as wingers. Foden has been shoehorned in as a left wing before, and I don't think it works very well for England. In Manchester City, he usually has a more free-flowing role towards the center of the park, and I think that's where he'll work best for England as well. So in this system, they would play more centrally just behind Harry Kane, and then Bukayo Saka and Kieran Trippier are going to provide the width from the flanks in more advanced positions. And that's going to do a few different things. It's going to allow Bellingham and Foden a lot more freedom with their movement, and it's going to mean that they don't have to be out towards the touchline. Instead, they can occasionally hang a little bit deeper, pick the ball up closer to the center of the park, bring it up forward, play in triangles with their wingers or their center midfielders, and then link up with Harry Kane up top. I think this is probably going to be the best way that we can utilize the strengths of all of these players. because we really don't want to have Jude Bellingham sitting too far back defensively because he has so much to give going and attacking towards goal, and we don't want to push Foden out wide because, in my opinion, he's just not a natural left winger. Now, there are a couple players that aren't in this starting 11 that I think could make amazing substitutions, and I want to call them out here, the first being Cole Palmer. Now, I follow Chelsea very closely, and Cole Palmer has arguably been one of the best players this season in the entire league, along with Phil Foden, and he was the Premier League Young Player of the Year. The stats kind of speak for themselves. In all competitions, he has close to 40 goal involvements if you tally up both the goals and assists. He is so impactful, and his influence on the game cannot be understated. And I think if Southgate wants to be aggressive and if he wants to make good substitutions, if he sees that we're not taking control of the game, if we're maybe drawing or losing near the 50 or 60 minute mark, I think he takes out potentially Phil Foden and brings in a player like Cole Palmer to try and get more creativity and try and get a little bit more offensive firepower. And another player that I want to call out is Anthony Gordon, and even Eze for that matter. These are actual wingers, and they are going to provide even more running down the flanks, and they're going to get behind the opposition defenders like no one else can in this team. Now, I think Saka and especially Trippier, they're a little bit more versatile because Trippier is going to be able to provide more defensive cover than someone like Anthony Gordon. But just as I mentioned, if it gets later in stages of games where we're maybe drawing or losing a game near the 60 or 70th minute mark, I say we bring on an Anthony Gordon, we bring on an Eze towards the wing, maybe replace them with Kieran Trippier, and now we can still run that 3-4-3 formation, but we're going to have a little bit more attacking from the wide areas. Now, guys, as I mentioned, Gareth Southgate is not going to have an easy job picking this starting 11 because there are so many talented players, and it's really hard to get the best out of every single individual, especially when you're not going to be training with them and implementing your tactics on a regular basis. But I do think if we can get our best and most influential players on the pitch, like Harry Kane, Bellingham, Foden, Rice, Trent Alexander-Arnold, Bukayo Saka, Kyle Walker, if we can get these players in positions that suit them, suit their tactical style, suit their individual profile, it'll give us the best chance of winning the tournament. But guys, at the end of the day, this is just a lineup that I think would work the best. Who knows what Gareth Southgate is going to go with at the end? It's very likely he'll stick with his traditional back four, but I have no doubt we're going to see a lot of these players on that first 11. But guys, please let me know in the comments below what changes you would make to this squad, what formation you think would work best, and which players should be in the starting 11. I'm really excited for this tournament, not just to see England, but to see all of the games play out. And if you guys are interested in any more Euro 2024 content, please also let me know below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.